Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland, and today we have another review for you. We have the beautiful Porsche 918 RSR replica wheel from Fanatec to review. It seems that Fanatec has been stepping up their game lately, and I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. This is a beautiful wheel, and we're going to put it through its paces in the Sim Racing Garage review. So let's get to it. So now we'll take a closer look at the wheel, and I got to tell you, this is a good looking wheel. And there's a good feeling wheel on top of that. It's not just all looks. She actually feels good too. So I'm trying to give you a closer look here. The first thing that stands out is this awesome Porsche emblem that they have attached to the wheel. It looks like it came right out of a Porsche. Really did a good job with that. I guess that's the results of the licensing with Porsche on this wheel. Nice carbon fiber accents on the bottom button pods. And of course that carries over to the top button pods. You can see them there. There are no carbon fiber shifter levers. They're steel, which was kind of funny because on the box that I got it had carbon fiber ones. So maybe that's an accessory or an upgrade. You can get to these later on. On the back, while we're here, we might as well take a quick look. It has the standard fare for connecting to the CSW base. One thing I did notice about this when I'm running the wheel is I don't have to use the bolt that goes in there to tighten the wheel to the actual shaft that comes out of the base. And I have to do that for the other Fanatec wheel, the BMW and the F1 that I had. I really don't like any kind of shaky movement between the hub inside the steering wheel itself and the hub that's on the motor. It really bugs me, and that's why I always ran the bolt. What surprised me is this I didn't have to do that with. Maybe it was because I'm also running this on the beta version of the CSW version 2. The tolerances are better because I didn't have to run the bolt. So that's one unexpected thing that I found on this wheel. Now while I'm back here on the shifters, let's talk about shifter reach. Now this is pretty much a long reach for me. When I put my hand on here, my finger can reach it okay, but you can see the pad kind of gets right there on the edge and it doesn't really get to around the back. I have to kind of reach for it a little bit instead of racing down the road and just grabbing it. So I set about finding out how to get it closer, and of course the first thing you would think of, well, we can just mount this on the other side, and I did that over here. And let's see that. The only problem with that is, yes, it gets it closer to my finger, but now when I'm trying to shift, I can grab up and I'm reaching, I can hit this bracket back here instead of just the shifter. And when I'm hitting just the shifter, the nail can get into the bracket, so that's not very comfortable, even though it does move everything closer. So another solution would be to take these spacers out. If I took the spacers out, see the spacers in there, and then just moved it flush against there, it would be less of a gap in there for my finger to feel uncomfortable on or hit and reach, and I'm reaching just as far as I was before I even moved the paddle up. But the problem with that is if you take the spacers out and just run the screws, then you got the big screws hanging out, and they stick out about 1/4 inch or so on the back. Well, you could always hack those off and just use a shorter screw, of course, which is fine. You can do that too. There's other solutions, but I would probably put it back the way it was and maybe take the spacers out on the back part. So if I took them out this way, I'd still have the longer screw hanging out behind here, but it really wouldn't make a difference to me because I'm grabbing this, and this is sitting back here nice and smooth, so I'm not grabbing anything else, but I'm just grabbing it, and I'm taking about 1/4 inch or so of space out. And don't forget, it's hard to see, but down on these brackets, like on most of these shifter pods that Fanatec produces, there's some grooves in where these 2.5 millimeter hex screws go, and you can actually loosen those up and bring the whole L bracket assembly forward, which I did here. I've actually done that, and I actually brought that forward too. But what I'm going to do is end up taking the spacers out probably and putting the screws back in the other way so that the screws are pointing this way. I'm not going to hack them up because I got to give the wheel back. So they're pointing this way, but I have the paddle on the back there, and that's going to be comfortable because right now, if you look, I put my hand on it now. I'm my fingers are way out there now, so it's really not an issue for me to put it back behind here and being flush. It'll be plenty, just because I actually moved the brackets and took the spacers out. So just a quickie there to how I adjusted the paddles on this to make it comfortable for me. Right, so anything else we want to talk about here? The shifter light's very nice being on top. I really like that. I was kind of wondering about being up there, how that was going to affect the hold or the grip on the wheel, and really it was a non-issue. I really like how bright the LEDs are. They're brighter than the ones on the F1 wheel that we had, and I really like bright LEDs. And you know, I have some custom wheels, if you watch some other videos, that really have some bright LEDs on them, and they're easy to see out of your peripheral vision, even though they're mounted down lower than these would be. So this makes it easier to see your shift lights. Only thing is, now you got a pod up here that you can grab if you're turning the wheel in certain ways, and that really didn't bother me. It might bother some people, but it really is kind of a non-issue. You can get nitpicky about that if you want to. The stitching on the wheel, this is not real leather, I don't think, but it feels like it. If it's got a real nice leather feel to it, and the stitching helps sell that. If you look, let's see, get a little closer here on the stitching. Go this way. There we go. It's a kind of a brown stitching, very nice, very well done. This whole wheel has a lot of quality built into it. And again, I think Fanatec is stepping up here and improving the quality on their stuff, because the other wheels that I had, the BMW and the F1 wheel, just are not as good as this. This is really a better put together wheel. It just feels better overall. The quality is better. I can only find one thing really on quality control on this wheel, and where was it? Oh, there it is. Let's see if you can see it. And it's kind of really not that big of a deal. It's got a little piece of, as you can see it, a little piece of thread sticking up there. And that's just the stitching where they tied it off, I imagine. So that's easy enough just to take some scissors, or I'm going to use some of these cutters, and snip that off level, and it's not a big deal. But it's just something that I noticed as far as the quality control. And again, I'm nitpicking here because I can't find too much wrong with it. And it just feels really, really good overall. Well, I guess that's all I can talk about as far as just the steering wheel when it comes down to it. But I just want to show you some of the adjustability on it, what little it does have, and how it feels in the hand, or try to describe it to you. It's just a really nice wheel. I really like this wheel. Some of the problems I thought I was going to have with it, I didn't. I wish we had some carbon fiber shifters on it, but that's for another day, I guess. Maybe they'll offer that as something down the road, or I'm sure people will actually cut their own if they really wanted to and screw them on there. All right, so now we're just going to put it on the rig, show me drive it a little bit, just for video purposes. I mean, it is just a steering wheel, so there's not much to talk about except how good it feels, and I can already tell you this wheel feels exceptionally good. I really like this, and we'll talk about how much I like it and the little nitpicks I found on it in our final thoughts after we finish driving it. Okay, here we are at the Glen, or Watkins Glen, and we have the Porsche 911 track, a fitting car for the Porsche 918 wheel. Thought I'd just drive it a little bit. There's really not a whole lot to show you here. It's just me driving the wheel, but it does feel good, especially with that ergonomic grip on the top of it. It just really feels good in the hand. The LEDs work great. They're nice and bright, or bright enough. I made a comment before about the F1 wheel with the LEDs, and even the GT wheel. I wasn't really happy with the strength of those LEDs. But here, these LEDs are nice and bright and easy to see exactly what your shift points are. It's just a great wheel. It feels good. It does what it's supposed to do. It shifts. I never missed a shift with it. So it shifts great. It's easy to control your car with it. It's got a nice, that oval design I was talking about, how it's longer. The rim is wider than it is round in the middle of it. It just fits your hand very well. And having it mounted to the CSW version 2 here is just a great combination. There's no shake in the wheel as far as when it's mounted to the hub on the motor, or the wheelbase I like to call it. And that's one thing I said before is one of my pet peeves. I just can't stand that. And I don't even have to run the wheel bolt on this, and it just stays nice and tight. So there it is, me driving the Porsche wheel. Again, not a whole lot to look at here. I just thought I'd show you that it does work, and it works well. And once you have it in hand, you'll see what I mean. It's a real good wheel. If I didn't have a GT wheel now, and I was going to run the CSW wheelbase, I would definitely get this Porsche wheel myself. It just feels that good. It feels that much better than any other Fanatec wheel I've ever had in my hands. So, with that said, we'll go ahead and move on to the final thoughts. Well, the final thoughts on the Fanatec Porsche 918 steering wheel are, this is a great wheel. It looks good, it works good, and I really can't find much to ding this wheel about. Maybe the carbon paddles that are on the box, but not on the wheel itself. So I'm just kind of nitpicking there because the wheel performed flawlessly. I didn't have any problems with it at all. It really feels good in the hand. Fit and finish are great. Like I said before, Fanatec is just stepping up their game here of late, as far as I can see in the products that they're delivering. So if you don't have a GT wheel already for your CSW system, then I would put this on the top of my list. It is just a great wheel and it feels that good. I'm Barry Rowland, and thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel.